Call the special meeting of the Ross Town Council Thursday, August 6th, 2020 to order. Linda, can you please take the roll?
Yes, Mayor McMillan
Here.
and Councilmember Breckus.
Here.
Councilmember Kircher,
Here.
Councilmember Cool,
Here.
and Councilmember Robbins.
Here.
And has the agenda been posted?
Yes.
Okay, today we are considering applicant interviews for member selection to the Advisory Design Review Group. And I will turn things over to Patrick.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So there's one item on today's agenda. It is interviews for the Advisory Design Review Group. In 2017, the council adopted Resolution 1990, which created policies and procedures for the Advisory Design Review Group, which is an advisory committee which looks at the design of projects that will ultimately end up in front of the council for decision. Part of that procedure is that committee members serve for a term of 3 years. So the last round of appointments were in 2017. All 5 committee members are now up for reappointment or for new positions in those 5 spots. Typically, the format is 4 design professionals and 1 at-large member. That is the preferred format, but it is up to the council if some other format would be preferred. So we received 10 applications. Incumbent member Dan Winey chose to withdraw his application to make room for a new member to join the board. So we thank him for that, and we thank him for his service over the last previous years. So we have 9 interviews that will be conducted today, and they are spread out. There'll be 10 minutes for response for 2 questions from each candidate. And the 2 questions were included in the staff report. And so I believe we can just begin right now. We have Mark Kirchnet, who is a incumbent member of the Advisory Design Review Group, and he is our first candidate.
And hi, Mark, welcome.
Hi, hello everyone.
I think how we're going to do it is I'm going to ask the first question, and Mayor Pro Tem Elizabeth Robbins will ask the second question. So we'll go ahead with the first question. It's long, and you can answer it however you want. Briefly outline what in your professional background, work experience, education, or volunteer work would be relevant to the Advisory Design Review Group, and highlight any special or unique qualifications or qualities you feel would contribute to the Advisory Design Review Group.
Thank you. And thank you for your time today. So I've sort of answered both questions together, not to steal your question, Elizabeth Robbins. So I'll just start going in order of importance. I'll focus more on the ADR first and myself second. The ADR purpose is to help Ross maintain its small town feel and natural environment, and also to help the town council be more efficient by not having to do all of the design review that we, the ADR, do every month. Although we want to preserve the basic character of the town of Ross, we need to refresh, modify, and sometimes even replace housing stock. Towns, like families, are living entities that need to evolve even as they attempt to maintain their essence. We try to balance the property rights of the project applicants in accordance with the design criteria of the town and the property rights of the surrounding neighbors. It's often a delicate balancing act. I believe that there are many projects in the last 10 years that are far better due to the ADR input. In some cases, that means an ill-designed project never happens, but more often than not, it means that a project is made better as it goes through the ADR process. This can mean improvements in architectural details, appropriate sizing, landscaping, etc. There have been cases where both the ADR and the town council have approved projects which probably should not have been approved in their final form. And I believe that yourselves, like myself, have learned over the years what doesn't work, and we try to make it better as we see projects, whether it's something on Bolinas Avenue with an unattractive wall, or something that's too close to the road in another neighborhood, and we try to avoid repeating those mistakes. A little bit about myself now, back to your original question, Julie.
Yeah.
For those of you that don't know me, I've been a Ross resident for 12 years. I have 2 children at Ross School in 5th and 7th grade. I built a house in Ross and understand the design, approval, and construction process in Ross from the perspective of a homeowner. I have 10 contiguous neighbors in Ross, and both their construction projects and my own have given me a pretty good insight into the approval process from the perspective of the adjacent neighbors. I have worked professionally in commercial real estate for over 20 years. I owned and operated properties. I also work with a San Francisco-based company to buy land, obtain entitlements, and build multifamily housing. Over the last 5 years, we successfully entitled multifamily projects in San Francisco, the Peninsula, and Oakland, and are responsible for about 1,000 new residential units, ranging from townhomes to apartment towers. And as part of this process, I've engaged with architectural firms and had countless meetings, dealings with the trade-offs between aesthetics and proposed projects, the desires of local neighborhoods, the goals of politicians involved, the regulations of the various government agencies, and construction costs. I've been on the ADR for 8 years now and have been the chair of the ADR for about 3 of the past 5 years. And this is not because I have the best architectural insights on the ADR, but because I'm good at running the meetings in a way that allows community input, but still keeps the focus on the design merits and the appropriateness of a project for our town. I've sort of meandered a bit between the 2 questions that we were given in writing. Should I let Elizabeth ask the other question, or should I just sort of continue?
Well,
I'm
I
not
could
sure how you
ask,
wanna do it, and I
I could
apologize.
ask you, my question is, do you have any thoughts or ideas on the advisory design review group's role as it relates to development and quality of life in the town of Ross? You addressed that a little. You can continue to address it if you'd like.
Sure. So I spoke about it a little, and I do have 2 sort of side notes about the ADR itself. And one is Ross is really difficult when it comes to setbacks. It would be great if the entire town was made up of half-acre square lots. It would be very easy. But almost every project that comes through is already in a violation of a setback or exceeds the FAR. And usually the owners want to increase the FAR and go into the setbacks even more. Almost every month we see a project where someone wants to add a deck, a pool equipment, or part of their house in the setback. Just last month, we had someone who wanted to build a pool 4 feet away from the property line and felt that the neighbor shouldn't complain because they really wouldn't hear any noise from the swimming pool. Applicants often want their neighbors to maybe suffer a bit more when it comes to noise and lack of privacy. And unfortunately, being a big part of being on the ADR is telling people that they can't do whatever they want on their property in cases where it infringes upon the town's specified legal rights of their neighbors. When you do choose someone, both architects and non-architects for this ADR, I hope you keep in mind that you need to be able to choose people that are comfortable saying no to some of the requests we have where it violates a neighbor's privacy and their rights. And a final note, as you're making your decisions tonight, over the past 8 years, I've had the pleasure to work with several excellent architects on the ADR. Dan, who has recused himself from the ADR now, but there are 3, Mark Fritz, Joey Buckingham, and Stephen Sutro, and they've all contributed in very meaningful ways, even if all 4 of us have disagreed about various projects over the years. And as you consider who should be on the ADR, I'd strongly recommend that you place great value on their past contributions, knowing that they'll continue to do good work if reappointed. The architects, unlike the or interior designers or other design professionals, offer a unique perspective, and I think it's very helpful to have a majority of actual architects on the ADR. That's all I have to say. I don't know if you have any follow-up questions or if that's it.
I don't
No?
think we can ask you follow-up questions because then we'd have to ask everyone else the same follow-up question. That would be really hard. But thank you, Mark, for your time on ADR, and thank you for reapplying. We really appreciate all the great work and your continued interest.
Okay, well, thank all of you and have a good night.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Bye.
Okay, so that concludes our first interview. The next one is scheduled for 4:25. So we have a,
And she is not, I do not see her here as, oh, maybe she just, nope, she's not here yet.
we don't have that candidate in attendance yet.
I'm going to fix my lighting.
Is Mark on yet? Maybe we could, oh no, 4:40, probably not, huh? Mark Fritz?
He is not on yet either.
Okay. And are members of the public on this meeting, or can we see that?
There's two members of the public on listening.
Okay, thank you.
And I think before we vote, we'll take comments from the public.
Mhm.
Okay.
Still not good.
Maybe if we're running ahead of schedule, which we are obviously now, Patrick, you might want to just maybe text them as that we might be going faster than we thought, or
Yeah, I can just send out an email to all of the panelists, letting
Okay.
them know that
they should get on a few minutes before.
they've all been asked to come on 10 minutes prior to their interview time.
Okay.
But we can also use this downtime to discuss the format if we'd like. So as I mentioned, at the conclusion of the interviews, before we adjourn the meeting, I'll ask that each council member rank the candidates 1 to 9 as far as who should they're most in favor of appointing to the ADR group, but being ranked 1. And then I will tally all of those results, and the top ranking 4 design-related professionals and 1 at-large candidate would then go into the recommendation that goes in front of council next Thursday. But as the Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, another way to do it would be to, we do have on the schedule the design professionals indicated separately from the at-large candidates. So we could do since we have
So we now have a new person joining.
yep, so this is our next candidate, but I'll just complete my thought here.
Yeah.
We have 5 candidates for 4 design professional positions. So you can also rank those 5 candidates 1 through 5 for appointment, and then rank the remaining 4 at-large candidates 1 through 4. That also works. So we'll discuss with the council at the conclusion of interviews which method you'd prefer.
Thank you.
But that being said, our second candidate is available now, and so we are going to have 10 minutes for this segment of the interview, and I will hand it over to the mayor.
Welcome. Can you tell me how to say your first name?
Yes, of course. Can you hear me?
Can you turn up your volume a little bit?
Yeah, can you hear me better now?
Yeah.
All right. Sorry about that. Yes, my name is Eyal Gutman.
Great. Welcome, Eyal. Thank you for your interest in applying for ADR. We really appreciate it. I will ask you the first question, and Mayor Pro Tem Elizabeth Robbins will ask you the second question. This question's kind of long, so bear with me. Briefly outline what in your professional background, work experience, education, or volunteer work would be relevant to the Advisory Design Review Group, and highlight any special or unique qualifications or qualities you feel would contribute to the Advisory Design Review Group?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here and giving me the opportunity to get involved with the town and the advisory design group. So my professional background, I am a staff software engineer at Dropbox. As part of my job, I work with large numbers of engineers and align projects to make sure that and we hit timelines and quality for various projects. Software engineer, if I haven't mentioned that. As far as the volunteer work, I've been involved with a bunch of pro-development advocacy group in California, mostly California YIMBYs is one that I've tried to be active with. This is the Marine Cities and Climate Initiative, or Climate Committee, sorry. Is also a group that I try to be involved with. And in the past, I've been involved in other community groups, such as the young adult, the Jewish young adult community from El Manuel Temple in San Francisco. And the reason that I asked to join the committee is because my wife and I were moved to the town 3 years. My wife is originally from the area, and she went to Ross School in Branson. So, and my father-in-law also has long ties to the town. He had a local doctor's office here for many, many years. So we're very, very vested in the town. And the reason that I want to be involved in the ADR is because I want to ensure that the same way that my wife and I were able to come back to the town and be part of the community and live near family, that we as a town look forward to see how we can make this easy for as many families as possible to encourage community. That is the outlook that I'm hoping to bring to the ADR and to our advisory to the town council when you come to make decisions that might affect how the town develops over the next decades going forward.
Great, thank you. Elizabeth?
The second question, and thank you, is do you have any thoughts or ideas on the Advisory Design Review Group's role as it relates to development and quality of life in the town of Ross?
Yes, so while I haven't been very involved with the ADR, I've been trying to spend the last year or so learning more about how the town comes to decision and follow the newsletters and the emails that the town has been sending. And I see that there's a lot of fairness in the process, and a lot of people are very passionate about it. I just want to be able to see if there's room for voice of the next generation, or the voice advocating for next generation in the meeting, to see how that unique perspective outside of the more regular the professional perspective that consists of the other 4 members of the committee can help advise the council.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Unless you have anything else you want to elaborate on based on those 2 questions, we're probably, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if I have much to elaborate on. I thank you for the opportunity. I know I don't have any experience with the ADR or design in general at this point, but I am very passionate about kind of bringing a perspective to supplement some of the existing perspective that we have in the advisory committee in order to basically see how we can better think forward to the next generation. My biggest, the way that I would see myself as being successful or helping this town be successful is if in 30 years it would be easy for my kids to move back to the town and live near us. That is basically my dream and my goal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Okay, so our
Oh,
next
so-
candidate is not here yet. The mayor seems to have dropped.
Mayor disappeared. Where did she go? Yeah, our next candidate's not here yet.
Well, I'm going to keep working on my lighting.
I
I
wish
just
you were
sent an
here to work
email
on my
out.
makeup.
I just sent an email out to the remaining candidates asking them to just join the meeting when they're available. Obviously, there's no penalty if you can't make it until the time that's on the schedule, but as they're available, since we seem to be moving through more quickly, we'll just be able to take them as they come on.
I think that's a little better. I think I need to get the light off in the kitchen.
Okay, so we're about 10 minutes ahead of schedule. So when Council Member Breckus figures out the lighting that's optimal, maybe we can start to discuss how the council would like to do the tallying of votes at the conclusion of interviews.
And I guess I have one other question about that. I guess I just wasn't expecting this. I thought we would all vote for 4 and 1. And then if there was a tie, we would be discussing who's the runoff, and not a ranked system, which has a lot of interesting complications in and of itself. So maybe we can talk about that at the end also. I mean, I guess if I have to say, my preference would be the simplest of all. We each say who are the 4 we want for the design professionals and who is the 1 we want for the at large. And then if there isn't a majority, then we vote again, or with the top 2, or have some sort of a runoff.
Mhm.
Maybe we can consider that as an option also. Ranked voting is odd, and it has a lot of weird ways people try to game the system. If you have an underdog, then you might put them first because you want to give them more weight, but really you're only voting for 4 people. It's an odd system. So maybe at the end we can talk about, should we just do a flat out vote? Who are our 4? Who is our 1? Should we rank? Should we rank for 2 jobs? Should we rank for 1 job?
Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's completely up to the council how you want to do it. So I laid out the ranking method, but if you'd like to just see if there's consensus at the end of the meeting for what everyone would like to appoint, we could do that, and that will then become the recommendation moving forward. So it's pretty wide open as far as what the options are. We could also just run through the process at the meeting and have that deliberation at the time of appointment. So that there are a variety of options. You don't have to do the one of the ranked. So we can have that discussion amongst council members. I do see our third candidate is here. Mark Fritz, also an incumbent of the current ADR group.
Hello, Council.
Hi, Mark. Welcome.
Evening.
Thank you. I don't think I've ever been called an incumbent before. I kind of like it. Sounds pretty sophisticated, if I do say so.
Well, thank you for all your work on ADR, and thank you for reapplying for the position. We all really appreciate that and your interest.
Absolutely.
I'm going to ask you one question that's pretty broad and open-ended and long, and then Mayor Pro Tem Elizabeth Robbins will ask you the second question. So the first,
And I've got 10 minutes, right? So I got to be succinct.
you have 10 minutes. I'll tell you that the prior 2 candidates have not come close to using their 10 minutes. Not that that's a benchmark, but so the first question is, briefly outline what in your professional background, work experience, education, or volunteer work would be relevant to the Advisory Design Review Group, and highlight any special or unique qualifications or qualities you feel would contribute to the Advisory Design Review Group.
Great. So I think that, you know, as we just mentioned, sort of incumbency, I've been on the design review committee since its inception back in the near Stone Ages, I think it was, but I think it was 2008. And continue one of the few continuing members from that time. I've served as chairperson, vice chair, and chaired a number of meetings throughout that time period. I've lived in Ross for about 20 years now, and I think that does provide kind of a unique perspective on how the town has changed, how it's modified, how the leadership has changed a little bit, and the approach to our town development and planning. I've seen a couple of town planners come and go, you know, and so it's really exciting to see some new faces in the town. I practice as an architect, trained as an architect. I currently don't practice in architecture today. I'm actually work in the tech industry. I work for Fitbit. I still have a core persona that is kind of design oriented. You know, I miss practicing design. I miss the opportunity to experience design and converse in those terms. So the outlet, the ADR has provided an outlet for me that I've really appreciated over the past 10 or 12 years. My day-to-day job, I would say when I think about things that are applicable to what I do on a day-to-day that's applicable to the ADR, it's mostly about negotiating and managing and understanding situations and problem solving. So, you know, when I look back upon the experience I've had so far, it's really just a set of different problems presented by, you know, different lots, different regulations, different needs for variances, different requests, and finding a happy medium. I think that's the part I enjoy the most, is those nuances where we look and try to apply our design standards, bulk and mass, you know, relationship with streets and other neighboring properties, and really finding out what the true motivation is for those applicants and how we can find a happy medium, you know, with the neighborhood as well. So sort of, I almost think of ADR as kind of a mediation, right? It's an environment in which we can bring people together, we can share different points of view, and we as design professionals can help articulate that for the town and really find a good solution. So I think that's the piece of what I do in my day-to-day job that I apply to the ADR. I absolutely enjoy meeting people across the town. For the first, I don't know, 5 or 6 years I lived here, it seemed like all I did was come home from work, sleep, and leave, and I didn't really meet a lot of people. And that was noticeable. I applied to be one of the council members back in maybe 2006. I think I ran. Didn't pan out. But I recognized how few people I knew in the town. And the ADR was incorporated not long after that. And I was able to meet a lot more people and really understand how the town operates, or the pulse of the town. So I really enjoy that. You know, I'm not one of the oldest members of the town, where, you know, some of our current members, they know everything about every house. Oh yeah, I went to a party in that house. And oh, I know Fred that grew up there. Maybe I have a slightly more a new perspective, but having lived here 20 years does provide some level of consistency. So architecture background, practice as an architect for a number of years doing residential design. So the types of projects that come in front of us are very much my bread and butter when I was practicing. Yeah, I think just the 12 years I spent on the board today has been an incredible learning experience, and has, you know, provided a way for me to get back to the town. And I certainly enjoy that as a community service, you know, and really understanding what makes it tick and how to keep it going. So I think that's, you know, the summary of my history. I like, you know, problem solving, and in the design realm, it's really where my passion still lies, and even though I wouldn't tell my boss that.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
So Mark, the second question, and you've addressed it a bit already, but go ahead and continue if you'd like. Do you have any thoughts or ideas on the advisory design review group's role as it relates to development and quality of life in the town of Ross?
Yeah, it's a great question, because it's at the heart of it. I think we try to do. You know, it's interesting, as the components of the design review committee were sort of established, and we kind of I think we've changed a little bit over time in what we've focused our energy and efforts on. It's become more formal, which has probably been a good thing. You know, we created those design standards and guidelines that I think helped articulate what we were trying to do over the course of the previous 10 years. I think of things that the design review committee has been able to either maintain or at least in the development moving forward, be consistent. So consistency was always one of the things that we struggled with. I think the town councils of past have struggled with, you know, talking 20 years ago. I've done projects here in the town myself as a homeowner. And I think the application of the guidelines and the standards weren't necessarily always consistently applied. And one of the things I think the design review committee can do even a better job of, but has started to help with, is that consistent application of those procedures, guidelines, and standards. Because once people kind of understand that and they're being treated equally across the board, and they don't think there's some preferential treatment from that lot to this lot or their application versus someone else's, I think we have better development. We have certainly happier townspeople. So when I think of the ADR, I think of consistency, and I think of the biggest pieces that I see as when I look around the town at the projects we've done, and we've reviewed, and we've made you know, either good recommendations on, and maybe we've missed some things. The things that strike me are bulk and mass. You know, I was around when we did the hillside lot ordinance and the ADUs. So a lot of those go to the fabric of our community. And I think we've done a pretty decent job of stewardship. I think of that as like the most important word for the ADR is like stewardship for what the town is, the soul of the town. And the environment in which we live in is part of our soul, right? We all experience things, buildings and streets and streetscapes and landscaping in different ways. But I think the best thing we can do to continue with the ADR is to ensure that they're the stewards of that, and you know, providing that design angle for you all as the town council to make the ultimate decision. So when I step back and understand, okay, what should we be doing more of, and what should we be continuing to do? We've done a lot of good things. I think there are even some more things on the horizon for the group. You know, I think there are some things around parking regulations, streetscape regulations, fencing, those types of things, garage. I think the ADU ordinance needs to be looked at again. So there are a couple of things that I think we could do as ADR to advise you guys on council to, you know, continuing to be stewards of the town and our development. I'll say one more thing that I thought was, you know, when I sat back prior to this meeting and I thought about the history of the group and what we were charged with, one of the things I think I was most nervous about was the application of standards that was going to ensure the town looked the same everywhere, right? Every house is going to be brown shingle. It's going to be a pitch of 8-on-12, and it's going to have white trim. And that's what the ADR is going to ensure. Thankfully, that hasn't come to pass, but as sort of a member of the group over time, I think we've struggled a little bit with that. And we have to, one of the things I want to see continue is that variation in town character, but with maintaining those guidelines and standards, I think we can continue to do that. We've had a lot of modern homes be built. That was always the fear, like ADR is not going to let any modern homes be built. I think that was one of the areas that I think the group, myself included, have done a decent job to sort of objectively apply what we're trying to achieve with our design guidelines and standards, and still yet having a very interesting town character, right? It's not a cookie cutter town by any means. So that's something I think we can continue to infuse and let the community know that that's how we approach design and design standards. I'm just going to take a quick look. Made a note or two. I think the other, another piece is around our street frontage. I think we did a great job of analyzing our neighborhoods within Ross in the design guidelines that we built out a couple years ago. And I think we could continue to develop those to ensure the characters of our streets are still consistent to some degree. And I've seen a little bit of breakdown in that over the course of some of the projects we've looked at over the past year or two. So that's something I look forward to continuing to try to enhance and include if I'm re-upped to continue to be able to do.
Fine, thank you
Mark?
so much.
Yeah.
That is time. So if you have any closing thoughts.
Wow. I knew I could talk. You guys have seen me on the council. I could talk. No, good.
Thank
Any
you very
questions?
much, Mark.
Yeah.
We really appreciate your time and your interest and your service.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Well, I appreciate all of you. The same goes right back to you. Being on the council is wildly more time consuming. So I thank you all for that effort.
Right. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, guys. Bye.
So we have the next candidate.
It's actually, it's not our next candidate.
It's not, oh, it's not. Oh, sorry.
No, but I did send an email out to all the candidates asking them to join when they were available.
I see,
So,
okay.
yeah, so the next interview slot is at 4:55, which is 10 minutes from now. But I think we can ask Megan if she's interested in doing her interview now.
Okay, let's bring her in and.
Hi.
Hi, Megan.
Hello.
So thank you for joining on the meeting earlier than your scheduled time. Are you comfortable doing the interview now, or do you want to wait until?
Yeah, no, this is fine. It's actually better for me to go earlier. So when I saw your email, I hopped right on.
Okay, great.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Welcome.
Thanks.
The way this is going to work is I'm going to ask kind of an open-ended question, and then Mayor Pro Tem Elizabeth Robbins will be asking the second question.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, so the first question is briefly outline what in your professional background, work experience, education, or volunteer work would be relevant to the Advisory Design Review Group, and highlight any special or unique qualifications or qualities you feel would contribute to the Advisory Design Review Group.
Yeah, so I'm not a design professional. So I think for me, kind of the common thread in my career thus far has been stepping into roles where I really don't have a lot of background or context, and learning very quickly what I need to know to quickly be able to contribute, and then also kind of supplementing with my outside perspective for kind of what I take away, learning kind of as I go, and kind of questioning why things happen the way they do, and if it might make sense to reframe how things have always been done. I worked for Uber starting back in kind of the early days before it was just black cars in a couple cities, and they kind of wanted to go all around the world. So they hired me into this role where they essentially sent me with a suitcase to a new city where Uber didn't exist and said, make Uber happen here. So, it wasn't something anyone had ever done before. So I kind of figured I was well enough prepared as anyone, and kind of got to all these various cities around the world and kind of learned about, what was important in various cultures and different dynamics when it came to how cities flow and move and that kind of thing. And figured out how to adapt what was working in San Francisco and New York to work in Madrid and Stockholm and London. So kind of have done that sort of thing in a variety of different capacities throughout my career. And, I've always really loved architecture and real estate, and community to me has just always been really important. I've always been really involved in the various communities that I live in and am a member of, starting back, as a kid in high school and then in college, and throughout I've sort of always, it's important to me to be, a participant in the community. So yeah, I'd say those were a couple things around my background that, I think prepare me for this role.
Great, thank you.
And Megan, the second question, and this is the last question. Do you have any thoughts or ideas about the Advisory Design Review Group's role as it relates to development and quality of life in the town of Ross?
Yeah, so based on what I know of the group, what I've read about it online, it sounds to me like the idea is to enable, the community to continue to grow and develop without losing what makes Ross so special and why it's the place that, we all chose to live. So for me, I think it's around, really understanding what what it means to enable kind of the type of growth that the city wants to see, not trying to be trapped in history and say no one can do anything and everything is how it is, but also at the same time preserving kind of the feel and the specialness and ensuring it doesn't kind of turn into like a bunch of, you know, big McMansions right up along the road. I grew up in Palo Alto, which was a really sweet small town when I grew up there, and it's kind of sad to me now to go through. I actually feel like the parts of it have really lost a lot of the charm. Reason why I didn't want to move back there as an adult. So to me, it's important to kind of preserve the feeling of specialness and privacy and community without, you know, stymieing development and not being so restrictive that people think, oh, I wouldn't ever want to move to Ross because they don't let you do anything, right? You want it to be supportive without being like overly burdensome.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Great. Well, if you want to elaborate on anything, feel free. Otherwise, thank you so much for your time and your interest in applying. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. No, it's great to meet you all. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate the consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
So the other candidate was here, but she stepped off for some reason. I'm not sure where she went.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, I saw her a few minutes ago and then she disappeared. But I see Stephen Sutra and Zane Morrissey both have joined.
mhm.
So,
So here she is. Just joined back.
oh,
up.
here she is. Okay.
Laura.
There she is. Hi, Laura. Welcome. The way this is going to work is I'm going to ask you one question, and then Elizabeth Robbins, Mayor Pro Tem, will ask you the other question. Can you hear me okay?
You're
You're
muted.
muted.
I'm muted or Laura's muted?
Laura.
There.
There you are.
We're still not hearing you, Laura.
So what we can do is we can take one of the next candidates and give Laura a chance to figure out how to get the audio working.
Can she telephone in so that she's on the phone while we see
Yeah,
her?
there's also a call-in number, Laura, if you want to try that.
What's that number? I mean, that way we would all hear her over the phone and we still see her?
Yes.
Oh, she
So
just
the phone number is,
Yeah, the phone number is 669.
you know, she just left, didn't she?
Well, she's probably calling in.
I see. Got it.
Hopefully she's still on. No, she's off. I don't know where she went.
Maybe she's trying to re-sign on.
mhm. So I was beginning to doubt my decision to put 5 minutes between each interview, but this is precisely the reason I did.
Do we have a way of texting her to let her know? Oh, there.
Here she
There
is.
she is.
Laura, can you hear us now?
No,
We can't hear you.
I can't hear
Laura, you can telephone, you can stay online and you can telephone us. Patrick, what was the number?
So the number is 669.
Sorry. 1 second.
Actually,
Wait,
your
we
audio is working
Hear
now.
you.
We hear you.
Okay, great. You might
Yeah, we hear you now.
crying in the background.
Welcome. We're glad to see you and hear you. So thank you for your interest in applying for the ADR. We really appreciate your time and your interest. The way this will work is I will ask a pretty broad open-ended question, and then Mayor Pro Tem Elizabeth Robbins will ask a second question. So there's only 2 questions. So the first question is briefly outline what in your professional background, work experience, education, or volunteer work would be relevant to the Advisory Design Review Group, and highlight any special or unique qualifications or qualities you feel you would contribute to the Advisory Design Review Group.
Sure. So I studied architecture at Pratt Institute in Brooklyn. And I practiced architecture for over 10 years. I'm right now kind of taking some time off with my daughter, and I have another child on the way. So I'm just taking a bit of a break. And when I was in New York, I worked for a German architect, Annabelle Seldorf. And she kind of did a range of projects, but I typically was working on like very high-end residential projects in the West Village, Chelsea, out in the Hamptons. And on those projects, some of them I was able to participate sort of all phases of design. And I've definitely had a lot of experience with construction administration as well, working with the contractors and the clients and the site visits. And so that was my New York experience. And then in San Francisco, I ended up working for Foster and Partners. And I worked on, they're here remotely, they're based in London, but they were working on the Apple campus, but I didn't work on that project. I worked on one of their executives' homes in Pacific Heights. So I was working from the construction site there for almost 3 years. What started off as a small renovation turned into a bit of a huge project. And, you know, that was working for a client who is a designer himself and extremely detail oriented. So it was, you know, challenging at times, but it definitely elevated the game. And I feel like, you know, all of my work, and then I also worked at Studio Vara, which is like a smaller San Francisco firm. Worked with them, worked with kind of their overall design and presentations and stuff. I did that part-time for over a year, or about a year. And so I feel like that all is very relevant to this role. And the reason why I'm interested in it is just, you know, one, we just moved here recently in February, so I'm new to the community, but like the opportunity to use my background and my skills and my experience to be able to contribute to what in my short time here I can see is just a really, really special place.
Great, thank you.
And Laura, the second and last question is this. Do you have any thoughts or ideas on the Advisory Design Review Group's role as it relates to development and quality of life in the town of Ross?
I mean, I can see that its role is very critical, you know, keeping this as a place that's desirable to live for all residents, a place where you want to raise a family, where there's a really great community feel, the charm, the history of the place. I feel like it's all very important. And so, yeah, I mean, I think, sorry, my daughter has been crying the whole time. Yeah, I mean, I just really appreciate the history that I see here, and the thoughtfulness that goes into the design of the homes, the landscaping. You know, I've been living in cities for a long time. I grew up in Michigan, but I've been in cities since I was 18. So this is my first time really like being in nature and feeling like you're living in a home in a national park, basically. So I can see how important preserving all of the nature, the history, all of those elements are when incorporating new design, to be respectful of all those things.
Thank you very much. And thank you for persevering with your baby in the background.
I
We
hope you
really
guys couldn't hear that, sorry.
appreciate that and feel guilt-ridden about that. So thank you.
Thank you, Laura. And unless there's anything else you want to add, we thank you for your time and your interest.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that's everything, but I would definitely like the opportunity to become more a part of this community, as it's been very strange times since we've moved here with, you know, coronavirus, but yeah, it would just be a great opportunity to get to know people a little bit more and contribute. So yeah, thank you for all of your time.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so we have Geeta Stewart.
Great. I see her picture. There she is.
Hi, Julie.
Hi, Geeta. Welcome.
Thank you so much. How are you?
We're all fine. Thank you. Thank you for applying and your interest and your time today. Can you see everybody?
I can see you. Let me see if I can get everyone up here. Gallery view. There it goes. I see everyone. Hi,
Okay.
everyone. I'm Geeta
Hello.
Stewart. It's nice to meet you all.
Great. So the way this is going to work is I'm going to ask you a fairly broad, open-ended question, and then Mayor Pro Tem Elizabeth Robbins will ask you the other question. There's only 2 questions. So the
Sounds
first
great.
question is, briefly outline what in your professional background, work experience, education, or volunteer work would be relevant to the Advisory Design Review Group, and highlight any special or unique qualifications or qualities you feel would contribute to the Advisory Design Review Group.
Thank you. Thank you for the question and for your time, everyone. I will first start telling you a little bit about my professional background. I run my own interior design firm, Geeta Stewart's Interiors. I work with clients in Ross and beyond to create spaces that are really unique to their lifestyles and needs, but also consistent with the town in which they live, both the historic and the natural environments. For all of us Ross residents, we know how important that is. And there are many other surrounding towns that also have that same feeling of their residents, that they want to maintain the streetscape in which they live, the overall neighborhood look and feel, and that's an important part of what I do. From a technical standpoint, I have experience remodeling entire homes, redesigning kitchens and bathrooms, and furnishing living spaces both indoor and out. I've had the opportunity to work on a pretty big development project here in Ross on a non-conforming structure, so I am familiar with setback codes and variances and other things that may require modification in plans when asking for certain exceptions. I continue to educate myself on those codes, but I am familiar with them. Further, in the work that I do, I'm accustomed to reading architectural drawings as well as building plans, and I do develop my design plan in tandem with those plans in mind. My aesthetic can be described as warm and lively, luxurious and approachable. To give you a little more, concrete example of my work, I'll just talk a little bit about a project I recently wrapped up, a 2-year project on a turn-of-the-century home here in Ross. I worked on a number of spaces within the home and some exterior spaces, from the library, converting it into a more multi-purpose room, the master bathroom, both his and hers, the powder room, the kitchen, a couple of different hallways, utility areas, as well as the children's bedrooms, and then finally an outdoor space. So I mentioned this example because of the home and its history. I had to develop the interiors with all of the architectural elements in mind. Specifically, can you hear me okay there, Beach?
Yeah, I'm just going to ask you to stop for a second because it seems like Elizabeth Robbins has dropped off.
Okay.
So hold on one second. Patrick, do you see Elizabeth?
I do not see her anywhere.
But don't worry, I've paused the meeting timer. So
Thank you.
And in other news, I think I figured out my lighting problem. It's this brightness button on my computer.
Ah,
Because I've been turning on every light in my house. But you want me to text Elizabeth Robbins?
Yeah.
thank you. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Sorry, Gita. Thank you
Oh,
for
no
bearing
problem.
with us.
I know there's always some Zoom technical issues, so no problem.
She says she's trying to rejoin.
Okay. There, I see her. I see her name at least.
I'm so sorry.
There she is.
Would it be possible for Gita to go back a little bit? Because I missed some of what she said. I'm so sorry. We both lost our internet connection, and that was that.
I don't mind at all. Did you hear me when I started to discuss an example of my work, or did you not hear that at all?
So I heard about the streetscapes. I heard about the project, the local project, interiors. I probably heard like the first 4 or 5 minutes of, 2 or 3 minutes.
Sure. So I was just going into an example of my work of a project I wrapped up recently. I spent 2 years at a turn of the century home here in Ross, working mainly on the interiors, but also on some exterior spaces. And I was pointing out to the group that because of the history of this home, I was always considering the historical significance of the home, what was there before me, what was there before the residents who lived there while designing the interiors. And specifically, I'll talk about the library. It was a sort of crowded, dark space that required some freshening up like the rest of the home for today's family life. And I transformed it into a multi-purpose room used for studying, reading, playing, where the color palette felt a little brighter and lighter. But again, really major design decision was to maintain the original millwork of the library, both the stain color, which was pretty, I would say, influential, and secondly, the design of it, both contributing to the personality of the home. And if it would be okay, I did mention to Patrick before the meeting, or asked him if I could show a photo or two. Is that okay with everybody?
Sure.
So just to kind of give you, a picture's worth 1,000 words. You mentioned it might be easier just to flip it up on the screen. Here's sort of the library before. You can see the millwork I was talking about. It's fairly dark, but again, this is instrumental to the original architecture of the home. And then here is sort of the finished product, if it's within view. We maintain the millwork, the color of the stain. We actually built in these children's desks here and here. So they look like they were really always there. They just seamlessly integrated with the original design of the home. I had chairs made to go with the millwork. And then that brighter, lighter color palette I mentioned was accomplished through furnishings and fabrics, textures, and pattern. And really, this space looks like it always belonged there, but again, was a nice update for the family who now has young children and needs to use this space for piano lessons, playing Monopoly, Lego, and also reading and watching TV.
Great.
Another, area I worked on, and I know the ADR does have a lot more involvement in the exterior of homes. So I did redesign the space, their outdoor space overlooking Mount Tam and their pool. And I mentioned this example because of the natural environment outside and having to come up with a furniture plan that, blends in with the existing color palette of the mature boxwood gardens, the various flower plantings, and of course the beautiful silhouette of Mount Tam, as well as ensuring the scale is appropriate to a landscape that vast and a garden that large. And if I may, I have another photo here. So, trying to exemplify here how I brought in this grayish blue palette to really blend in seamlessly once again with the existing flower plantings, this beautiful art sculpture that was there. And I hope you can see the silhouette of Mount Tam. It's not very dark in this photo. And again, the mature gardens. From a scale standpoint, this sort of gives you an idea of how I was able to spec a furniture plan that fit in very nicely with this large landscape. You can't go with very diminutive pieces. You also can't be buying things that are way out of proportion. So this is just really, in my mind, a perfect example of a furniture plan done to scale. And then again, that color palette, you can see the mountain a little bit better in this photo. So two, concrete examples of my work, both interior and exterior. And as far as, specific qualities in me, I know none of us have worked together personally, and most of you have not been inside of my home, but if you had worked with me, many of my clients, all of my clients would say I'm extremely detail oriented. It's probably one of my greatest strengths. I never let anything go overlooked. When it comes to design, I think consistency is key. I employ that across when I'm working on, baseboards and wainscot, crown moldings, things like that. I'm really big on consistency. Number two, I have a very detailed eye for slight variations and even paint colors, things that probably 98% of people would not even notice. And third, again, an example we just went over, but evaluating appropriateness of scale and being able to recognize, does that width of that column work in that space? Does this furniture fit a yard of that size and work with the landscape around? So, I have had the chance, luckily with Zoom, to sit in on a couple of ADR meetings or see some recorded sessions, and I understand the level of detail that the ADR discusses with the project applicant and their team. And I feel that given my detail-oriented eye, I too could contribute and add value to those conversations, and as a result, impact the project positively and the recommendation to you all, the town council.
Great, thank you.
And Gita, my question is, the second question is, do you have any thoughts or ideas on the advisory design review group's role as it relates to development and quality of life in the town of Ross?
Thank you, Elizabeth. And that's an interesting question, and I appreciate it. I didn't get to hear the other applicants' responses, but I wonder if they had the same reaction. I think it's a great question because it's important to recognize that first and foremost, there can be a natural tension between development and quality of life if development is done in haste. And we're here today to talk about ADR and members that sit on that board. And I believe their main purpose is to ensure that the two can coexist, development and good quality of life, the quality of life that Ross residents have grown accustomed to, that we all enjoy and feel very grateful for living here. And then going back to, the ADR's main role and duties in the materials supplied, being able to maintain that small town charm of our town while also helping project applicants achieve their design goals. So, given this natural tension between the two, and then secondly, looking at what the ADR's main role is, how do you reconcile the two? And I do feel that the ADR's purpose and their collective expertise allows them to bridge the gap and find the commonalities between project development projects and maintaining that small town charm, that quality of life that we all hope to sustain in the town of Ross. Specifically, how can the ADR do this? I thought about this a lot, and I think, number one, act fairly across project applicants by applying the municipal code. That's a no-brainer, and some people would see that as basically the number one thing that they should apply. But I think you have to sort of dig a layer deeper, and I think we have to recognize that there's nuances in each project, and that's where the ADR really does add value. They're able to get into the details and discuss what hurdles the project applicant might be facing that would in turn impact the quality of life of maybe the nearby neighbor, of maybe the general public driving up the street. So of all these meetings that I've had a chance to listen into, I understand the questions that have been brought up on, is the new dormer, appropriately placed on the existing facade? Has the utility equipment been hidden away out of public eye? Are the fences, the 3 fences in sight from the road, being treated universally? These are the types of details, the nuances of each project that the ADR can together help the project applicant find solutions for, and again, recommend the project to the town council so that everyone can leave the table feeling like they have a win-win scenario.
We are out of time, so
Okay.
wrap up your
Thank
thoughts.
you very much.
Gita,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much. We really appreciate your time and your interest.
Thanks, Julie. Thank you to everyone. I appreciate your time, and thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Okay.
Okay. And now, so we next would have been Megan, but she was kind enough to volunteer to go earlier. So next would be Stephen Sutro, another of our incumbent members of the ADR group. And Stephen, are you available to do the interview now, even though it's a little bit before the time that we have scheduled?
I am. Can you hear me now, Patrick?
Yes.
Okay.
We can't see you though, Stephen.
He just asked me to start the video. There.
Great,
Good.
great.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
There you are. Thank you. Thank you so much for your service and for reapplying for ADR. We all really appreciate it. We have 2 questions today. I will ask the first question, and then Mayor Pro Tem Elizabeth Robbins will ask the second question. The first question is fairly broad and open-ended. Briefly outline what in your professional background, work experience, education, or volunteer work would be relevant to the Advisory Design Review Group, and highlight any special or unique qualifications or qualities you feel would contribute to the Advisory Design Review Group.
Sure. Thanks for the question. It's been really fun serving on the ADR in past years. And what I've really enjoyed about it is helping protect the environment that we have. And why I feel well suited to do it and continue to do it if I am asked, is that what I do professionally is high-end single-family residential architecture throughout the Bay Area. I have been doing high-end architecture in the Bay Area for 25 years since graduating from Berkeley. I have my own firm now that I've had for about 15 years. I have a group of 27 people, and we are doing high-end single-family residential construction throughout the Bay Area. And what that means to me and my kind of insight into the rest of the jurisdictions that are handling similar questions or grappling with similar issues is that I'm able to bring some insight about other jurisdictions and kind of have some perspective on that. But so acutely, I'm involved every day, all day in the choice of quality materials, quality choices about how single-family buildings relate to the interior environment, exterior environment, to the streetscape, to open spaces, and so forth. So these are the things that I do all day long. And I've been happy to be able to lend some of that expertise and both agree and disagree with other members of the ADR on subjective questions about that, but all with the same goal of hoping that we keep the beauty of Ross the same. And so I feel very capable as it relates to what the right choices are in the context of quality and durability and new forms of buildings or new choices that are attempting to respond appropriately to our existing context. So anyway, it's kind of what I do.
Great, thank you.
And the second question is, do you have any thoughts or ideas on the Advisory Design Review Group's role as it relates to development and quality of life in the town of Ross?
Well, I think that we all feel fortunate to live here in Ross, and it's because of its some of its zoning controls are to credit for that, and then we all are to credit for that to maintain the vibrancy and idiosyncratic quality of relationship of the structures to open spaces and our preservation of the open spaces. And that comes from certain mathematical things related to our code, but also comes to some subjective treatment of those things. You know, so a lot of our buildings don't meet the code, and that's okay, but that means that we have to figure out how best to apply the code, and so we have a great planning staff to help us do that kind of from a code-based standpoint, and then there's a lot of subjectivity within the code. And so I think that that Ross is great because of the amount of greenery, the amount of the ratio of building to open space, but also because of the certain ways, the non-conformity of it as well, and because certain things are bigger than other things, and I don't think that we need to impose a rigid system of consistency among our buildings, but if we have a general principles of quality and maintaining privacy and non-fortress-like looking things, and so there are all these like kind of little small characteristics of our town that make it so rad, and they're hard to codify, and it was enjoyable to work with the team that helped us put together our kind of design guideline document, or whatever the terminology is for that, the document that they helped create, and it was fun because looking at the other cities that group had worked with, a lot of them are kind of a little bit more cookie cutter, and they were trying to kind of jam some norms onto our town, and in certain ways, well, I kind of like that roof sticks out more than the others. And, you know, things about it when you walk around town make it more interesting than a lot of places that we visit and know. So anyway, I think that somehow helping people work within the code to achieve their goals and still maintain that idiosyncratic quality and organic feel, and certainly the amount of open space to building ratio. One thing that I've been interested in exploring is whether we should exempt basement square footage from the FAR standards, so that people have increasingly kind of higher desire for square footage. And I don't think that we should relax our standards from an FAR standpoint, because I think that we would lose part of the charm of our town. But I know that certain lots are smaller than it really bears, that, you know, that the FAR bears, and also that tastes have changed, you know, in terms of the amount of clothes that we own, or, you know, silly things culturally, but so people want larger houses, and it would be nice for our town to offer a little less resistance to accomplishing people's goals to make their houses awesome and as large as they want, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody. And so anyway, that's sorry, whatever, small thing. But so I would say that I'm interested in kind of keeping it the same, but not insisting on aging in place in a way that doesn't respond to people's interest in updating homes and improving them, and also achieving goals for vibrant families that love our town.
Thank you very much.
Great. Okay, unless you have anything to add, we really appreciate your service and your interest in applying again. So thank you, Stephen.
thank all of you for your service. I'll see you later.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, so next on the schedule is Zane Morrissey. And so we'll bring Zane in.
I see his name.
Oops, can anyone hear me?
We can hear you. We can't
Oh.
see you though.
I just got the controls. Let me just allow everything.
Great.
Hi, sorry,
There
you
you
have the world's worst haircut, but I haven't been able to get one since March. Well, I guess maybe soon.
Welcome, Zane.
Thank
you
you.
for your interest in applying to ADR. We really appreciate your time. The way this is going to work is I'm going to ask you kind of an open-ended, broad question, and then Mayor Pro Tem Elizabeth Robbins will ask you a more detailed question. So the first question is, briefly outline what in your professional background, work experience, education, or volunteer work would be relevant to the Advisory Design Review Group, and highlight any special or unique qualifications or qualities you feel would contribute to the Advisory Design Review Group.
Well, I will start by saying that in the field of design, I'm a layperson. And with that said, I have been a resident of the Ross Kentfield area for my entire 25 years of existence. I grew up here, went to school here until I went off to college in Los Angeles. I work in visual effects and feature film production. I specifically work in virtual production, which, while it seems like it has nothing to do with architecture, we stole a lot of the fundamental features of AutoCAD, and we digitize every aspect of a movie in virtual production. So instead of a post-production process, we come in and work with the director really in pre-production, and we give them more methodologies and controls to alter sets, assets, characters, camera composition, time code. It can get very technical. And then we will work with every live action department through production, and then we'll work with the post-production teams through delivery of the film. But a major part of that, and to be clear, I'm a part of the production personnel. So I work under the producer, and what I do is I help liaise between the different departments to communicate what we can and can't do, and generally that's our directive, and we end up upsetting a lot of people who want to build it a certain way, but we have to tell them that the way it's been designed digitally already and prepared in the way the director wants it, we're going to need it to our specifications. So while I am a layperson in the field of design, a lot of my job is speaking the lingua franca and trying to communicate between the expert groups and then all the other groups and stakeholders that we have to get on board in order to get everything together, shoot it, and go on to the next production phase. Hopefully I didn't waste too much time with that. And that kind of brings me to the present day.
Great. Are you finished?
Yes.
Okay. Elizabeth?
And the second question, Zane, is do you have any thoughts or ideas on the Advisory Design Review Group's role as it relates to development and quality of life in the town of Ross?
Yes, I'm actually very glad that we have an ADR group. I think it does a lot of good for our town. I think a lot of other areas don't get nearly the amount of attention that our town gives to itself in local government. That said, I've been familiar with a lot of the decisions with the ADR and their workings and how they go about, and I've attended a couple of the meetings over the years. I would say that I would like to see it enter a more standardized process of providing specific guidance to applicants. I think what it does and its mission is fantastic and commendable, and that's why I would like to be involved as a member of the town and somebody who's known the town for a very long time. Well, a long time in my timeline. But I think where we could improve and do even better would be to really get very specific and kind of standardized in the guidance we're able to give. And I think that would be really great because it provides a great guidepost for people who become applicants. And obviously, you know, not everybody's a design professional, and so it's a great resource.
Thank you very much.
Great. Unless you have anything to add, we really appreciate your time and thank you for your interest.
Well, thank you. No, that's about it. So I'll keep it short.
Thank you, Zane.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
Thank you.
Okay, so that concludes 8 of our 9 interviews. I've been in touch with Joey. She is doing her best to get here, but she's not scheduled until 6:10. But I do have Neera Doherty from our town attorney's office. She just joined the meeting.
By phone? Is that by phone?
The phone number, yeah.
Okay.
So
via video. Hello, Mayor, members of the Town Council. This is Neera Doherty. I apologize. I wasn't able to make it on via video for some reason.
Hi, Neera. Welcome.
Thank you. I wanted to provide you guys a brief overview of the process that we'll be going through tonight in order to rank and ultimately select members of the board. So what we're going to be doing is, I think you guys, if you've already opened, well, yeah, you have probably already opened the hearing on considering the applicants. And what we'll do is the council can deliberate and discuss the applications, ask follow-up questions of the applicants if you want, ask questions of one another and staff, and the council can, during the meeting, complete a ranking of the applicants using the forms that I believe Patrick has provided you. I think the plan then is the item would be continued to the next agenda, at which point staff will utilize the rankings that you all have provided, and staff will come back with a recommendation on the appointment. At that meeting, the council can take any action on the recommendation. It can modify the recommendation or accept the recommendation, and at that point, the council will actually vote on the the appointments to the Advisory Design Review Board. And I'll also note that the rankings that the council would make, any documents regarding the rankings will be a public record.
So can I ask a question? This is Elizabeth Robbins. So I guess that we've understood that we can do this sort of secret ballot because these are public ballots that people want to ask, but I'm just puzzled at why we're making it so complicated with this ranking system. Why aren't we why aren't we each voting for 4 design professionals and 1 at-large candidate? And if there happens to be a runoff, then we have a runoff vote and we know who the top candidates are amongst the other council members. Because my understanding with ranked voting is, I mean, mainly it's done so that you can avoid a runoff, but it ends up with candidates that aren't necessarily the most popular because of the funniness of ranking. So I don't understand why we're making it so complicated. Could we just, each of us vote for 4 design review professionals and 1 at-large candidate, and then see where that gets us. And that would be sent in, and then, you know, Patrick could tally that and announce how that came out at the next meeting. And our tallies would be public, as you said.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Yeah.
To Elizabeth's point, one possibility is, well, I thought I understood at the beginning that it said, you know, you can select a community member, you know, and or you can select the architects and you can kind of comprise it as you want. This is our path. But there's nothing preventing us from, you know, if we ended up with 5 people who say are design professionals, they just happen to be that. There's nothing preventing us from saying, let's have design professionals in all 5 seats. And then, you know, one of those, I mean, I don't know how you would even say they're, you know, a community member. I mean, maybe you'd say a non-working person, but formally an architect is a community person, or maybe you'd say, you know, you know, I certainly think Mark Krichnick would qualify as a design professional, but you could put him in that spot. I am wondering how that ranking might work if people wanted to go with people with this design background and they didn't want to put in somebody that didn't have the design background. Just a question.
Yeah, and it's up to the council what format you'd like the ADR group to take. So my proposal was to separate it into the, as it's written in the policy, 1 non-design professional, 4 design professionals. But if the council feels that the strongest makeup of the group would be 4 people who happen to be design professionals, that's perfectly fine too. And we don't have to do the secret ballot way either. If we wanted to, the council could have a discussion today. The way that appointments are made sometimes during public meetings is we do a roll call through the council. Each council member gives their top pick. So we could even separate that out and just do design professionals first. Each council member gives a top pick. Then as soon as we get 4 votes for a certain person, they become the recommended position. And then we repeat it as needed until we fill each of those positions. The results from tonight would then go into the continued item for next Thursday as the recommendation from staff. So that's an option that's on the table as well.
I like the ballot, or you know, just saying who you want as a candidate. I don't think that we should be getting into the merits of certain people. I think we should try to avoid that.
I mean, after I have a couple of general comments to that point. Should I make them now instead of at the end?
Yeah, while we wait for Joey, I think it
Okay.
makes sense to use the time.
So here were my thoughts about this situation. The first is, I mean, one is just, you know, the composition of the ADR and how important is it to have members trained as architects for the 4 seats that are intended for architects, building designers, or design professionals. And I guess to begin with, I think that basic structure of our committee has worked well through the years: 4 design professionals and 1 at-large member. And I'm not sure that we should change that right now, because that's what we've been working on. It works well, and that's what people applied for. But for the design professionals, how important is it to have architects? My perspective is that I think it's probably very important to have architects. I spoke with several members of several planning boards this week, and everyone agreed that architects provide a really important level of expertise. Homeowners come with their architects before the ADR, and they really expect an expert, professional, high-level review. And I think that at any time of appointment, if the town has 4 architecture-trained candidates for this design, you know, the design professional position, I think personally we should probably appoint the architects, because I think that provides the best expertise for our committee. The second comment I have is, how do we approach candidates who are incumbents when we have multiple applications, multiple applicants? And my sense about this is, I think that we should probably reappoint our incumbents. And I think that we should do that because we rely heavily on our volunteers in this town, and we don't want to discourage people from volunteering. And they could get discouraged if they think they're going to get voted down when their term ends. I think going forward, if we wanted to consider a policy that allows for more turnover, allows for younger people to join these committees, we could always set a policy that says something like, if an incumbent has served, say, 2 or 3 terms, and if there are multiple applicants for the seat after, say, 3 terms, then we might ask the incumbent to step down. But I mean, that's just sort of a made-up idea of a policy to allow for turnover. But I think right at this point, I think we should encourage our volunteers, and I would say we should appoint our incumbents. So in summary, I would say we have 4 seats for a design professional, 1 for an at-large. I think we should we should reappoint our incumbents unless there's some reason not to. And I think that for the design professionals, if we have the luxury of having architect-trained candidates, I think we should probably appoint them because that provides a level of expertise that is just outstanding.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Is Mark Kuchnick, is he considered the at-large member?
No, he's a design professional. The at-large, oh, Mark, sorry. Mark is an at-large member. Yeah, you're right.
Okay, because I thought that with the original composition, he was considered a design professional. And then the next time I thought what happened was we ended up having so many architects that we kind of just said, well, he could qualify as a design professional, but we moved him over to the at-large position. I could be wrong in that, my recollection.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. He is the at-large, he's in the at-large role now. And he's not architect trained, but he does have, real estate business, real estate experience.
Okay.
Patrick, do you have thoughts about just automatically appointing the incumbents and because of their experience?
I have thoughts on it. The method that I'm on the planning commission in Petaluma, and we have term limits so that it ensures turnover on the commission.
Mm-hmm.
But there is no policy there, nor has there been in any of the jurisdictions I've worked in automatically reappointing incumbents. I think it could have the consequence of discouraging people from applying if they know that there's a guarantee that, for instance, 3 of the 4 applicants, or possibly even all 4 design professionals or all 5 members of a board are automatically going to be reappointed, and they're not aware of who's planning on reapplying or not. They may not go through the effort of actually filling out an application. So I think it could be discouraging to getting new people on any of the boards or commissions if that policy is in place. But there is certainly value to people who have already served and recognizing that service.
I mean, that's why I suggested maybe going forward, we institute some sort of policy that helps to allow for more turnover, going forward. It's just a thought. I don't know if it's term limits, but it's a possibility.
Beach.
I think we ought to consider term limits. I think we do need a certain amount of turnover. Maybe we limit people to 2 terms, which gives them 6 years, which is a long time to develop the experience and the capabilities to perform well, but ensures that there will be openings for others who are interested in their moving to the town later or coming along. So I think term limits might be a good idea. I'm not suggesting that we can impose them right now, but going forward for our next time, 3 years from now, after we get this group settled, that I would suggest imposing term limits.
Question.
Yeah.
Beach,
Go
does
ahead.
that for the council?
I'm all for term limits for the council, that frankly.
So-
Bill probably is too.
So, this is a policy thing, and I sort of am in Elizabeth's camp that, first of all, I'm amazed that we have these many architects in town. And I think that, architects are certainly, should be prioritized as members because of their unique skill and background and use. And so I was just curious. I mean, I wouldn't be against term limits. On the other hand, I sort of feel like if incumbents are doing well, why would you, not recognize that service and say, don't continue? And I just wonder if we have enough architects to continue to have term limits and then continue to have people step up. That would be my concern there. But I think there is value in some turnover. I'm sort of in agreement there, but I also think that if people are doing a good job, and it is a time commitment, that, we should recognize that too.
We may find that when we talk about this, if we talk about this in the future, we may decide something such as a term limit for the at-large position, but we may not have 4 architects, who can turn over every 3 or 6 years, and maybe there wouldn't be a term limit for that role. I think anything's possible as we, look at ways of giving people opportunities in the future while maintaining the level of expertise we expect of our planning commission. Well, we're the planning commission, the ADR.
No, I
have a question.
I'm happy to we do have 3 years to discuss the composition and the format. The way it's set up right now was adopted by a council resolution. So if we want to get too far along with how the ADR group should be run, I would suggest that we put it on an agenda and have it as an actual discussion item, and then move by resolution to actually have the policy. But for the purposes of tonight, we do have to settle on a methodology for making those appointments. So so Mayor Pro Tem Robbins, just to your point earlier about if each council member were to suggest the 5 members that they'd like to see, if it comes out that there is a majority of 5 people, that there is consensus, that works out perfectly for next Thursday's meeting. My concern is that each council member recommends different people, and then we find ourselves next Thursday having the same discussion to try to figure out what best way to make those appointments, which is why I suggested the ranking system in the first place.
Right. But then couldn't we just have a runoff between the top 2 at that point? If you have, you can see how the votes play out. And if you have, let's say it's for the design professional and there are 4 places, then, and maybe 3 people clearly have majorities, and then there's sort of a tie or something for the last 2, then there could just be a runoff vote at that point.
Mm-hmm. So that's certainly something we can do. I would have it as a report item next week as opposed to a consent item in that case. But
that would be my preference, because I think it's really clean and simple. Everybody votes for 4 design professionals and 1 at large. That's the way the committee is set up right now. And if there aren't majorities that win, then we see where does the runoff happen?
Bill, did you want to add something, or you had a question?
Yeah, I had a question in terms of how to view the design professionals. We talk about design professionals, then we talk about architects. But one of the design professionals, as far as I can see, who's applied, is not an architect in terms of actual training and experience, although what she described there's certainly an overlap there. She talked about exterior design as well as interior design, and she did seem to have an eye for detail, as she described, but she's not an architect, or am I wrong? Could we consider her to be an architect even though she has no formal training in architecture?
I mean, she's not an architect. I believe the exact wording of the ADR is that, let's see, it would be, wasn't it an architect, building designer, or design professional? So those three categories were considered in the design, in the architect category.
Yes, I think technically she would qualify, but I in terms of the discussion here about the value of having architects on the design review committee, is there some advantage to someone who has specific experience as an architect, some sort of priority or additional desirability? I don't have enough experience in this area to really make a judgment on that, but I'd be interested in what other people have to say.
I mean, I've attended maybe over half of the ADR meetings, and certainly architecture input, architecture expertise is really key, because these are architects bringing plans to a planning commission, and they really need a high level expertise review. And I guess in talking with a couple of people on a couple of different planning commissions, asking that specific question, how important is it to have someone who's trained in architecture on the planning commission? I got lots of yes, it's very important. That is the whole point, that it's nice to have an at-large person, but an architect, someone who's trained in architecture, knows things and knows how to read plans, understands elevations, understands all sorts of things that I don't understand, and that has value. So my opinion from attending ADR meetings, listening to the presentations, and talking to some planning commission people is that, yes, if we have four people trained as architects, those are the people I would put in the design review, the design professional category. That's how I would do it.
Beach.
I think we have to be careful here what sort of wording we use. For example, one of the houses that Janie and I owned many, many years ago was designed by a person who was not an architect, but he was a house designer. And I would not want to exclude, some way we have to work it so that we don't exclude people just because they don't have a degree in architecture.
And I think to Mayor Pro Tem's point, the two categories are one at-large resident, and then the other category is architects, design professionals, or building designers. So, so that's the codified policy. It's as far as what type of professionals would be the best serving on this group. That's why we have these interviews, and that's why the council makes appointments.
Question.
Yeah.
Given my recollection that Mark was previously in a design-related professional, and then he later got moved to an at-large position because we ended up with more architects, which I think is correct. I wish someone else remembered that as well, but that's my recollection. How did you divide these people into these different categories? Did you, because I think Mark, under that language of it, could kind of fit in that other category if, as a possibility. And I wondered, did people apply to a specific spot?
No, we didn't have a checkbox. I just looked at the position employer field on the applications, and Mark's is listed as real estate investor. And going back to the code, that didn't look like a building designer, architect, or design professional. So that was the differentiation. But all the applications were made available to the council. So my word is not law here. So if you feel otherwise, I'm happy to change that.
Mm-hmm. I have a request, and I don't want to cut short this conversation if other people have points, but could we take a few minute break so I can let my dog out?
No.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, I was actually going to recommend, since we did have such a window between our previous interview and the final interview, that we do take a brief recess. So now would be a good time as any.
Could we let Nira go?
Yes, I'm also letting her know that she's Thank you for.
I'm here,
for
guys, if you
that.
need anything else from me.
Thank you, Nira. Okay. So
Yeah, thanks.
thanks.
And
Okay,
and if you need anything else, Patrick can always grab me back on.
great. So can we take a 5-minute break and resume at 5:57?
Thank you.
Okay, I will stop the recording or pause it.
In the meeting, Patrick, can you please repeat what you just said?
Gladly. Okay, so in discussion with the town manager, we agree that the mayor pro tem suggestion of each council member before the meeting is adjourned, but after the final of the 9 interviews is conducted, email me with their 4 appointment recommendations for design professional and 1 appointment recommendation for at-large. While the meeting is still going on, I can quickly tally those emails and let the council know if we do have a clear selection for what the recommended appointment would be. And if not, if there are any ties, and then we can just, with another series of emails, perform those tiebreakers. That would allow us to move forward with a consent item for next week's agenda, which would just be staff recommending appointment of the candidates who received the most votes tonight.
Would there be any harm in just going around and orally saying who we think, or is that too awkward? Rather than
I thought the purpose of emailing it was that it's legal, it's public, but if there's a pretty clear consensus, then it's kind of more discreet. I don't know.
To me, it's the same thing. We're just not getting into the weeds and discussing individual people. It just seems like it would be faster to just go around.
It does work. My only caution with that is that depending on the order that the names are given or that the recommendations are giving, that could influence a council member's decision. Whereas if each email is sent separately, then we know it's everyone's decision without being influenced by anything else.
Okay, that's a valid point. Okay, then does everyone agree on that process?
I don't disagree. I guess I wonder if, I mean, Elizabeth made her point about, the idea of incumbents versus not. In some ways, hearing from people, their different perspectives on that might be a useful part of that deliberation. And without it, maybe it's, not hearing from other people, but about how they're making a decision. That was one.
So you want to have a brief discussion on how people feel about incumbents?
I think it's not the worst idea.
Yeah. Well, I'll go first. I think, while I think these people have been doing a very good job, I don't think we want to discourage new people. And I think we need to have new people. And so I am not just going to automatically vote for the incumbents.
And
anyone else?
Sure, I'll follow up. My instinct is to not say to incumbents, that they should be off unless there was a reason that I had, so I'm a little bit more thinking incumbents are a good thing. They provide continuity. They provide that institutional knowledge. I mean, in my time, I've had 3 planning directors, plus, and we had a whole slew of temporary people that was really tough on us. And so I think that particularly there's an argument to be made for incumbents on this committee, given that.
Anyone else? Beach?
Oh, go ahead, Beach.
Well, we only have 2 candidates for, I'm sorry, no, I'll take that back. Because we have all the incumbents are candidates. So I think we ought to just do it some simple way. However, if any member of the council felt that it would be embarrassing for him or her to discuss the merits of some of the particular candidates, I would honor that and just go by sending an email without
Yeah.
discussion.
Yeah.
I think people can either decide or not decide how they feel about incumbents. But as I said, I think going forward, if we feel that there's not a lot of turnover in seats where there are lots of applicants, and that might be the at-large seat. I mean, we don't have tons of architects applying for the design professional. We might discuss term limits, but then as Elizabeth pointed out, would it be for us too? You know, hard to say, but you know, it's something to consider going forward. And it's obviously not something to consider tonight.
Yeah, I think the term limits issue can be considered at another at another time.
I think it has to be. It isn't
Yeah.
agendized.
Right. Bill, do you have any comments?
I think there's value to incumbency, which is experience, which goes back to consistency. On the other hand, sure, we do need turnover. Some of the applicants for the at-large memberships have specifically mentioned the future generations and so forth. You know,
yeah,
representing younger points of view. I'm not sure that the incumbents necessarily the old guard, but you know, I think we have to be sensitive to that too. But the way I look at this, we need 4 design professionals. We have 5 applicants for 4 positions. And 4 of those people are architects and 1 person is an interior designer. So that's one way of looking at that. But as to the large members, we have a greater number of applicants.
So we have Joey Buckingham, who has arrived.
Great.
Can you all see me?
Not yet, Joey.
Oh, here we go.
There
Hi.
you are.
Hi.
Hi, welcome.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for scrambling to get here early.
I tried to get back as fast as I could. I knew it wasn't going to happen before 6. Sorry.
No, we appreciate it. And thank you so much for all your service on ADR and your application going forward as well. We're just going to ask you 2 questions. I'm going to ask you the first question, which is pretty broad, and then Mayor Pro Tem Elizabeth Robbins will ask you the second question.
Okay.
So the first question, briefly outline what in your professional background, work experience, education, or volunteer work would be relevant to the Advisory Design Review Group, and highlight any special or unique qualifications or qualities you feel would contribute to the Advisory Design Review Group.
Okay, well, first of all, probably my best qualification, it also may make me kind of a little bit of a barnacle, but I have been doing it for a while on the Advisory Design Review Group for Ross. So I've seen a lot of projects come through Ross. And I know within the group, we've been discouraged from talking about how long we've lived in town, because I think that sort of, I don't know, it was felt among the members that gave a certain gravitas to the people who had lived here for longer or not. However, I do think the fact that I've lived in Ross for almost 28 years has given me a sense of many projects that have come before. And I've seen a lot of projects, and I've always been really interested in the design in town and what projects were getting approved, which weren't getting approved. So those 2 things I think are probably what I rely on as my most helpful attributes. However, I have run my own design business for 28 years now, and it's largely architectural. It's an interior design business, but I am trained as an architect, and so a lot of the work I do is architectural. And before I did that, I held jobs in the architecture field solely before I came up here and had kids, and then sort of decided that the interior side of the business was more well suited to what I could handle while I was raising the 3 kids. anyhow, I just feel like I've seen a lot around town, and I have a keen appreciation for this town and what we all loved about it when we moved here, and a keen sense of stewardship to try to keep the things special about town that we all love, we all know and love.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joey. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Joey, the second question is, do you have any thoughts or ideas on the Advisory Design Review Group's role as it relates to development and quality of life in the town of Ross?
Can you say that one more time?
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts or ideas on ADR's role as it relates to development and quality of life in the town?
Well, I think our role is somewhat self-explanatory, and it's to review projects as they come in and to kind of decide whether they fit the town code and they fit the whole look of the town. And I think that in turn obviously has a big impact on the quality of life in town, because if all of a sudden development is a little bit out of whack or it's not kept in check, then I think it ceases to be the town that we all know and love. So I think the ADR is basically kind of a first stop, and I know it's advisory, but I think it does play a large role because we all really benefit when our town is beautiful. Basically, I like to make beautiful things. That's what I spend my days doing, hopefully.
Thank you.
So.
Great. Well, Joey, unless you have anything to add, we want to thank you for your service and your interest in reapplying. We really, really appreciate it.
Well, I do have one thing to add, and that is that I think I put in my application, I'm very happy to serve again, kind of more as a civic duty. I feel like I do have something to, I do have some talents or abilities that I can offer to the town and the place that I live. However, I would be really happy and not hurt if I weren't picked and someone else were given a chance, because I've done it for a long time. So I kind of put in my application as a just, to do something for the town, but I'm not, as I said, I won't be hurt if I'm not picked. I've done it for a really long time. Okay.
And we thank you for that. It's very gracious of you to make that offer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I hand up, take me out if you have some better options, and I would feel really happy about that. I mean, I like working on the ADR, but I also have done it for a while. So however it happens is fine with me.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good evening. Sorry I was a little later.
No, you weren't late. No,
Okay.
thank you.
Bye. See y'all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, that concludes the interview portion of tonight's meeting. Mayor McMillan, I'll just remind you that you had mentioned wanting to open the floor to the public if there's anyone that wanted to speak on this item.
Thank you. Thank you, Patrick. Linda, is there anyone from the public who wants to make a comment?
Yes, we have Melinda Ching.
Okay.
Hi, thank you for allowing me to speak for a few minutes. My husband and I have lived on Ivy Drive for nearly 27 years, and I wanted to participate or just to be part of the meeting tonight because we recently had a firsthand experience with the ADR group, and we were so impressed with their expertise and equally impressed with how much they listened to our concerns. And I just feel like we are so fortunate to have each of these individuals serving in the community. And I just urge you to vote for the incumbents. I think they're all wonderful, and the work they're doing is really appreciated by us. So that's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Melinda. Linda, is there anybody else from the public?
I don't see anyone else with a raised hand.
Okay. So, Patrick, now you want us to send you the 4 top design professionals and the 1 at-large person? Is that what we're going to do?
Yes, unless if the council wants to talk about the previous 9 interviews, or again, we've kind of exhausted the topic of what the composition should be, things like that. So if everyone's willing, then I would suggest right now just sending me an email with your top pick for the at-large member and your top pick for the 4 design professional members.
Can I make a suggestion here? I suggest you just email Patrick and not the group of council members.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Just Patrick.
Yes, please email me directly and not CC the other council members.
Yeah.
Right.
This is like the Academy Awards, right?
We need to have envelopes, though.
Yeah. And don't get them mixed up.
And Councilmember Cool, I just replied to you. I just need a clarification on the spelling of one of the names. So if you could just confirm my assumption in an email.
You know those Stanford types.
Yeah, they have assistants to do their spelling.
My dog's dying to do a cameo right now.
Oh, I
let
love
him.
to hear.
Do show.
Councilmember Cool, you're muted, but you can also just verbally confirm if my email assumption is correct.
The one that got misspelled and my phone did it. I didn't do this. But was supposed to be Sutro.
That's what I assumed. I just wanted to make sure since
Yep.
And so that I've gotten the recommendations from all 5 council members. And I got a nonverbal recommendation from Councilmember Rickes's dog. And so that was a lot easier than I thought it'd be. There is pretty much consensus across the council.
Wow.
So it's not complete consensus, but there are clear choices for appointment that I will put into my recommendation. So the recommendation from the council for appointment for the at-large position would be Mark Kirchnet. And then the 4 design professionals would be Mark Fritz, Laura Dewar, Stephen Sutro, and Joey Buckingham. So that will be the recommendation in the staff report for next week's council item. It'll be on consent. And if between now and then any council member feels that the recommendation should be different, you are welcome to pull it from consent and we can have that discussion at that meeting. But that concludes the staff's needs for this item for this meeting.
Will those candidates be told that that's the recommendation? You know, it's not a vote, but that's the recommendation, or do they wait till next week to hear anything?
I'll
They
reach
may
out to
be
them.
listening.
No,
Pardon me?
I'll reach out to them and I'll let everybody know that
Okay.
applied, what the results
Great.
are. And it is a public meeting, so anyone is welcome to tune in now, or they could tune in tomorrow when it gets posted. So.
Great.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Patrick. That was really well done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. See you next Thursday at 6 o'clock virtually.
Bye.
For sure.
Okay, that's a wrap.
All right.
Okay.